Hello there. Hi. We should be live on Facebook and LinkedIn, hopefully. Let me know if you can see me. Drop me a comment or a like below, just so I know that I'm appearing on your feed. I've not done one for a while, so I thought I'd jump on. I've got a really interesting topic to cover today, so I wanted to go into that around feeling less anxious about your relationship. So I really want to help you if you have a partner who feels insecure, if you're feeling insecure about your relationship. This might include issues around trust, worrying about what your partner's doing outside of the relationship, or if you're finding it difficult to be on your own, if your partner's finding it difficult to be on your own. So those types of things. And if you're in a relationship with someone who struggles with this, there are some really useful things that you can do to help. So we'll go through those in a few minutes for you, and I'll explain in a little bit more detail. But firstly, I just wanted to run through an example of a couple who've just completed my relationship reboot program because they came to me with exactly these issues. So it was difficulty trusting. This was leading to a real feeling of disconnect. They were arguing a lot and they weren't really sure whether they wanted to continue with the relationship at all. So one of them had been cheated on in the past, in a previous relationship. So this was, or certain behaviors were really triggering for them. So their success, really, their hard work that they put in over the period of time working with me was really down to their ability to look inward first, understand how small changes can make a really big impact over a period of time. And they were really engaging with the communication techniques that I introduced for them. They were great at completing the tasks in between the sessions as well, just to help us continue to move forward. It all started with them just with a simple Zoom call, 20-30 minute Zoom call. This really helped me understand their situation in full. And then they confirmed for me really why they were stuck, how we could move forward, and what we needed to put in place. So they came up with quite specific behavioral changes that they wanted to implement so we could make it really tangible. But they basically came up with these general goals. So it was to feel more emotionally connected, to understand each other better, to redevelop that trust, and to have constructive conversations with a resolution and a way forward. So if those goals resonate with you at all, or there are other things you want to work on in your relationship, just drop me a message with the word start and we'll see if we're the right fit. Also, before we go into today's topic, I just wanted to say thanks to those people who have voted in my recent poll there on LinkedIn about sleeping in the same bed as your partner. Quite an interesting one. Brought up some interesting results, I thought, and it comes up a lot with clients that I speak to. Actually received over, I think it was 145 votes in the end. So thanks for that. And the results for these. So yeah, how many nights do you share per week with your partner? It was 7 nights was 74%. 6 and 5 nights was just 2 and 3%, but 4 nights or less was actually 21%. And I was surprised by that. I thought that was much higher than I thought it would be. And look, I mean, I work with clients who don't sleep in the same bed at all, right the way through to those who share 7 nights together each week. So I'm sure there are lots of reasons behind this, and the number of nights that you might share with your partner. Thinking immediately, obviously, of kids. Kids are a massive disruption to that. Running into the bedroom in the middle of the night, or if you've got a young baby, it could be work patterns, work commitments, needing a good night's sleep before going to work because you've got important stuff on, and maybe just around the practicalities of one of you snores, have different interests. Maybe one of you wants to watch TV before you go to bed, the other one doesn't. So I understand it. I get it. And I've got these issues in my own relationship as well, in terms of the kids, disrupting that. But one thing I do know is that time before you go to bed, it's a really unique time. And if the person who you're closest with, um, if you don't have an opportunity to share your day with them, if you don't have that sort of closeness and intimacy before you go to bed, um, I think it's quite a unique time. It's a unique opportunity to do that with the one other person in your life. So some relationships might be solid enough to and secure enough to never handle sleeping, not sleeping in the same bed for a period of time, and that's okay. But I just think it's a dangerous position to be in, and if your relationship isn't quite where you want it to be, then that might be one thing you need to change. But yeah, just a bit of food for thought, and it's, I'll continue doing polls like that around interesting topics. I think that one really struck a chord with a lot of people. So yeah, keep an eye on my LinkedIn, and you're always welcome to put any feedback, any comments, any opinions on there as well, because I'd love to hear it. So back to today's topic, which is really around feeling anxious or feeling less anxious in your relationship. And most of these feelings, really, these feelings of anxiety, they originate from a fear of abandonment or a lack of trust, and the byproduct really is a feeling of a loss of security. So when someone feels in this position, they let out protest behaviors, things like a need for constant reassurance, acting out by being jealous, or um, wondering what you're up to outside of the relationship, asking you to stay in rather than doing your own thing and going out. So I work on these issues with clients every day, and we do it using something called attachment theory, which you may or may not be familiar with, but it's a fascinating concept around raising your awareness really of how you were treated in your early years, how you were parented, and the type of affection that you received, and consistent behaviors that lead to a feeling of security and a feeling of empathy. And obviously, these impact our adult relationships as well. They can have a huge impact, but it's not only your childhood, it's your consistent ongoing experiences in your adult relationships as well, which obviously have a big impact. And they'll affect how you're showing up most often in your relationship as well. So to give you a bit of an overview, I'm just going to run through the three different styles and you can understand then where you might fit. So most people are secure. 50% of people are secure and display secure behaviors, but there's plenty of anxious and avoidant behaviors as well. About 20-25% of people display a lot of those characteristics as well. So let's go into the three main attachment styles for you based on those adult behaviors initially in a bit more detail, and then I'll run through those three things that you can really do to help change some of these behaviors as well. So secure people are often very comfortable with their relationships. They're comfortable with intimacy and closeness, usually warm and loving, don't fear abandonment. They're not overly worried about relationships, don't spend too much headspace sort of worrying about them, and very good at communicating effectively how they feel, understanding the cues of their partner as well, and just responding to them. So it's very balanced. You'll share your successes and challenges, and you're happy to understand more about your partner's challenges as well. So that's secure. And the anxious side of things would be people who perhaps crave more intimacy than the other person is able to give them. So they often feel like the other person doesn't really love them or doesn't really want to stay with them. So adds a lot of anxiety around it. And these people then tend to be all in. So they throw themselves into relationships even more, which can scare other people away. And they tend to be very sensitive to partners' mood. So although their emotions are often right actually, and they're quite accurate, they're so heightened that they can become really really sensitive, and take the partner's behaviors really really personally. So they experience a lot of negative emotions within the relationship and can get easily upset. So as a result, they might act out and show some of these act out behaviors, or maybe even just say something that they later like regret as in the spur of the moment. If the other person provides a lot of security in this position, and is sensitive to their needs, they can bring it around quite quickly to a balanced and loving secure relationship. So it's about being sensitive when you need to be, but the person who is anxious, their sensitivity can actually become a real asset to the relationship when it's used in the right way, and they're able to communicate their fears, and you're able to better understand them as well. The avoidant style of things, that's somebody who perhaps feels nervous and uncomfortable if people get too close. So they feel themselves kind of pulling away from the relationship quite a lot, and it can be difficult to for these people to really develop trust within the relationship. They associate any sort of intimacy with a loss of independence. They are often told that they don't show enough emotion, don't feel that they're connecting with their partner enough, and so they can get blamed for being emotionally distant on that as well. And in relationships, these people are often on high alert by any sort of control or impingement on their territory. So you can see there that people across those different attachment styles have a very different view on things like intimacy, closeness, conflict, how they deal with that, their ability to communicate their wishes and needs, and their expectations from the partner as well, really. So, rarely people fall into that other category, which is anxious avoidant. It's less than 5%, but that's really if they don't display any secure characteristics at all. So, a question for you really at this stage would be, what attachment style do you think you're mainly displaying in your relationship at the moment? And of course, we're all uniquely different. We've got our own characteristics, and we create attachment bonds in slightly different ways. But we have all been programmed to behave in a limited number of ways as a result of our childhood and then adult relationship experiences. So, 1 in 4 people can change their attachment style over a 3 or 4 year period without even really knowing it. Just through their different experience of relationship, they will naturally change that. But the intention here really is to give you an element of control over it by bringing it more into your conscious mind, so that you can change some of the patterns of behavior to have a more secure relationship much sooner than that. So if you feel unsettled in your relationship because you're craving more from your partner, it's most likely that you have an anxious attachment. And people with that anxious attachment, they crave more, not less, of the other person, because they don't feel like their needs are being satisfied. So this theory suggests really that you're only as needy as your unmet needs. So protest behaviors come out, and they might include things like being jealous, calling incessantly when you're at work, just being overbearing, just pushing into the relationship too much, other than a balanced way. But this attachment theory is good because it explains the reasons behind it. So rather than saying this is a healthy or unhealthy behavior, you can just see it as understandable when it's in this situation. So the three things that I think are really going to help your partner, if they're feeling anxious, and then if they're in that anxious attachment and you're trying to get them back to a more secure. These are the three things which I think you can evolve your relationship over time and change it with the right support to help your partner feel more secure. And the first one is around practicing active listening. So it's just so important to understand your partner in full rather than trying to respond, trying to stick up for yourself, trying to prove that you're right. It's just about validating their feelings and understanding them. That's so important in every couple that comes to me. Many of them will, that is one of their biggest needs, to feel like they're being heard. The second one is really to encourage independence by helping them feel dependent. So this is a bit of a paradox, but dependency is so important in a relationship. The person needs to feel dependent first. They need to feel that they can really rely on you, and then you can encourage independence and encourage them to do other things outside the relationship, and to develop their own self confidence that way. But it starts with independence. And then the third thing really is, if you have an anxious partner, it's so important for you to practice your self care so that you can show up as the best version of yourself as often as possible. And you've got that patience and ability to help manage their anxiety because your tank's full of the things that you need as well. And so, yeah, I can help you analyze these attachment styles in much greater detail. I run through like a 5 minute exercise, which identifies your most consistent style, and then we discuss it in a coaching session with you and your partner, so you can understand these behaviors and just really understand some of the micro behaviors that would need to change in order to get your relationship to a more secure place. So, just two questions to think about before I leave you this afternoon. And one of those is, what small changes do you think you can make to improve your relationship? So just which small changes do you think you can make to improve your relationship? And the second one is really, what attachment style do you think you display most consistently? And just to have a sort of think about that based on what I've said today. But drop me a message with the word start if you'd like to find out more about my sessions and how they work. And I'd obviously welcome any comments below, any feedback, anything you found helpful, anything that you have a different opinion on. Just drop me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.